Does the process of pattern making in Procreate feel a bit mysterious? Do you find yourself wondering, how can I make seamless patterns? And are there tips for designing patterns specifically in Procreate? And can I scale my patterns in Procreate? Or where can I test my designs? If so, this mini course is for you. It demystifies pattern making. Along with a free set of tools I have for you, we'll walk through my own pattern making process, common design styles, how to turn a design into texture brushes, and tips for using your brushes to make larger Procreate patterns for Etsy digital products, and for print-on-demand products like the kind you can sell through Society6, Printify, and Spoonflower. Before jumping into Procreate, let's talk patterns. You can follow along with the PDFs included in the freebie. Let's quickly get through some definitions. For this tutorial, a block is a square tile. Horizontal offset is a shift in the horizontal direction. Inner tile shape is the primary shape dividing the space within a tile, while motif is the drawing or illustration. Seamless is when there are no visible seams or interruptions in a design. The horizontal and vertical repeat style is pattern repeat. A shape placed next to another to cover an area is a tile. Vertical offset is a shift in the vertical direction. Now let's look at some common pattern repeats. The block repeat goes by different names: straight, standard, basic, square, and so on. Tiles are arranged horizontally in either a square or rectangular grid and are vertically stacked. From any tile in the arrangement, the next adjacent tile horizontally has a full horizontal offset or vertically has a full vertical offset. In a brick repeat, there is a full offset vertically from row to row, but each row is offset by half. For a half drop, the opposite is true. It's the columns that are offset by half. There are a group of repeats that I call half-halves, and this is where each adjacent tile exhibits a half horizontal offset and a half vertical offset. Diamond, OG, and scale are all patterns that I like to call half-halves. While shapes of individual ceramic tiles for flooring, showers, and backsplashes dictate how they'll be placed within a given area, digital repeats work differently. So when it comes to designing these different patterns we've just looked at, it's all about the block repeat going across the rows and down the columns and the square tile. So it really starts with our square tile, and those shapes that we used to have for ceramic tiles, those are the inner tile shapes. Here are a few more common repeats, and as you can see, the inner tile shapes are pretty simple. They're either tossed leaves, rectangles, or squares. Let's talk about how to achieve our various repeats. For a basic block repeat, you would center your inner tile shape or motif within your square tile. For the brick and half drop, use a 4x4 grid to divide the square, then place the motifs in the grid like so. Notice how in the brick specifically, one of the tiles has been split in half. The right half is on the left side of the canvas, while the left half is on the right side of the canvas. For the half drop pattern, this split tile happens in the column. For any repeat where the adjacent tiles exhibit a half horizontal offset and a half vertical offset, the half-halves, use a grid that divides the square into quadrants. Then center the inner tile shape vertically and horizontally. Then you'd create 4 copies and position them in the corners just as the diagram illustrates. This will make more sense when we're working in Procreate in the later part of the tutorial. So what if you have a diamond, a shape that doesn't fit into a square? Well, you start with the shape, and then you begin to think about what kind of rectangle might go around that shape. And then you think about how many rectangles will actually form a square. And that's really how you go about your design when it comes to designing for a square. There are a lot of ways to add interest to a pattern, but before we go further into that topic, it's worth taking a moment to clarify some concepts. The inner tile shape concept that I keep referring to was invented by me for this tutorial, and it describes the geometric shapes within a square tile, shapes that started out in the physical world as ceramic tiles. And even though shapes are often referred to as motifs, thinking of shapes as categorically different from motifs is useful when it comes to digital pattern design. So that is why I've made that distinction between the inner tile shape and the motif. There are 3 benefits to separating the inner tile shape concept from the motif. The first is that the inner tile shape can stand alone and make a fun and interesting geometric pattern. Next, the inner tile shape can serve as a powerful guide when creating motifs. A motif can be made using the inner tile shape as a guide and then used alone without the guide and imply a really cool inner tile geometry in a subtle but lovely way when it comes to your finished pattern. Okay, let's talk about how to add interest. Whether through shape or motif, there are several ways to add interest to a pattern. For example, a variation in motif or shape size, as in the stripes, has a way of breaking up the monotony with a bit of the unexpected. Using different colors within a design has a similar impact, and also patterns with a lot of empty space around a motif may inspire a sense of calm, while filling the space with a motif may inspire restlessness. It all depends on how the patterns are used. Finally, combining motifs such as different leaves together, or combining a motif and a shape, as in the plaid and floral patterns, adds a bit of complexity and has a way of sparking curiosity. Another important variation to consider is the rotation of a motif and inner tile shape. Diagonal shapes may help to create tension, while rotational variety among the motif or motifs may add a touch of fun or whimsy to the pattern, again depending on how the pattern is used. But there's something to know about rotation. Usually motifs can be rotated by any amount, flipped around, reflect another of the same motif, or have a rotation that differs from other same or different motifs in the design. However, the digital square blocks by which the inner tile shapes are bound are limited to rotations in increments of 90 degrees, so like 90, 180, 270, 360, you get the idea. Rotating the inner tile shape, essentially the tile, in anything else than a 90-degree increment doesn't hold up well. As you can see, we've got this 45-degree rotation here, and those diamonds are, well, it's kind of interesting, but it doesn't hold up, and certainly the stripe doesn't either. So how can you rotate the inner tile shape? Well, to achieve the diagonal 45 lined pattern requires a little bit of out-of-the-block thinking. Really, all pattern design benefits from out-of-the-block thinking. It's about understanding where one inner tile shape connects to the inner tile shapes of every adjacent tile. But this thinking is especially helpful for diagonally oriented inner tile shapes. An effective way to get this understanding is to sketch the inner tile shape at about quarter size of the larger square, centering that sketch within the larger square. Next, mark all of the connection points between the inner tile shape and the adjacent tiles. Color coding each shared connection point, side to side, corner to corner, midway to bottom, really helps. Then copy and place the inner tile shape within the adjacent tile spaces, matching colored circles to each point. Phew, that's a lot of information about patterns. I think maybe it's time that we step over to creating our pattern tile in Procreate. So let's go ahead and get to it. 3 things before we start. I am using a canvas at 3600 pixels by 3600 pixels at 300 dpi, which is basically 12 inches by 12 inches. And you can use that size if you like too. Also, I'd love to see your pattern, so show us your art on Instagram with hashtag digiartswithliz. Also, we'll be using my pattern checker tool. It's a 2x2 block pattern checker at bit.ly/check-tile. And we're going to need a few things for our project, our tile project. We're going to need the latest version of Procreate and the latest version of our iOS for our iPad. And at bit.ly/from Liz, you can grab the Freebie Pattern Power Set. We'll be using that. And you'll need a stylus too to take full advantage of the brushes, including the other freebies that we'll be using. We'll be using the Flower Power freebie from my site, which also comes with some nice PDF references to look at. Okay, let's make some Procreate patterns. We're starting out with a 12 by 12 inch canvas at 300 dpi. It's just a size that I always like to start with, but you can use different sizes. And the reference that comes with the freebie explains a little bit more about that. Okay, so let's see. We're going to go ahead and go to the Pattern Power freebies. And we're going to use the scale or drop OG. I like to think of it as a dragon scale or a fish scale. And we're going to select that one and we're going to choose a color. I think I'm just going to go ahead and choose kind of this nice blue color right there. And we are going to just stamp down in the middle of our, at 12 by 12, the stamp is just slightly smaller, which is great. And you just sort of stamp in the center there, and then you can position that. And I have uniform selected, and I also have snapping set to a distance of 3, and that just makes positioning this a lot easier. So we're just going to go ahead and position this up in the corner until we get the nice golden lines, and then we're just going to drag this down to get our golden lines, whoops, at bottom and side. Let's see, like right about there. Okay. Okay. Now we could just take this and turn this into a pattern. Here, let me go ahead and take us over to my pattern checker here. So under digiartswithliz.com tools, there's pattern checker, and you can do a nice little 2x2 block repeat and see what's going on there. So let's go ahead and drag that over and see if we've done a good job. And we have. And so this could be your pattern, like you could go with it just like that. But we're not going to be using it as a pattern today. We're going to be using it to create a little motif that it more implies this pattern. So let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to go ahead and clear that, toss that off to the side. And we're going to put a new layer on top here. And then we're going to go over to our flower power brushes, and we're going to select the leaves, daisies, and cosmos, and I'm going to bring that size down to simply 4% or thereabouts. And then I'm going to choose a nice green color. I think I like this one right there. And then I'm just going to go ahead and draw some stems here, and inside sort of the white space here. So we're just going to just make them, you know, random. Doesn't have to be perfect. That's my, whoops, whoa, that's a little bit long though. So not perfect, but not too crazy. All right, just kind of thinking about how I want this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I like to go with sort of an odd count. I feel like it is a little more aesthetically pleasing, so pleasing to the eye. This one might be a little long, but I'm going to go with it for now. And now we're going to switch over to another color, red, this one right here. And we're going to separate our colors from each other on layers. So we're going to create a new layer here. And then I'm going to go back to my brushes, and I'm going to select the Peonies and More. I really like the look of this brush, and I will leave a link in the upper right side there to the video that talks about how to create flowers with this brush set. It's a free brush set as well. Ooh, I like that. We're going to go with 4. I've just decided 4 petals here. Okay. Okay. That's fun. And we're going to make these all look just slightly different here. Yeah, okay. Ooh, I like that. Maybe make a little bud right in here. And, you know, we're not really going for anything perfect here in this project. We're just really demonstrating how you can make a quick floral pattern using this guide. It's a really great tool. So a nice little floral motif here. Okay, alrighty, looks like we've got all of our little flowers. So now let's go back to that previous layer here, our green layer, and we're going to go back to our green color. And now I'm going to bring, we're going to select the leaves brush again, but I'm going to bring the size up to, I don't know, somewhere around 34 it looks like. That's pretty good. And then I'm going to start putting some leaves in here just to give it some sense of movement and whatnot, and some interest. And this is a pressure sensitive brush, and I'm just gonna, I don't know, I'm just kind of winging it. In other words, just kind of being random here and just like, what do I like, what I'm gonna, you know, kind of intuitive art really. I'm just kind of trying to keep things sort of balanced throughout this scale shape here. Okay, this is fun. Ooh, I like that. All right, and like, you know, vary the size of the leaves too, just for a little bit of interest, like that. And we went out there, that's totally okay. Getting close to the guides, like that. That looks good. It feels like it has some motion and it's full, and I really like that. So that's looking pretty good. So let's go back to our very bottom layer here, layer 1, and we're going to go ahead and turn off the visibility of that, because we just wanted to use it as a guide for this particular pattern. And now let's go ahead and, with this layer 2 selected, let's go ahead and gently slide and drop the, oops, let's try that again. There we go, gently slide and drop it, so that we have both selected, and we're gonna go ahead and group them. Okay, now with this group selected, I'm gonna go ahead and select my move and my transform tool, and I'm just gonna center this. I'm looking for golden lines in this center. There we go, perfect. All right, and then we're going to take this and we're going to, it's a half and half pattern like we talked about before. So I want to take this pattern and duplicate it and position it. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to just store that for a second. So we're going to go ahead and select our group, gently slide it over and duplicate it. And with the first duplicate, we're going to bring it up, and we're looking for, again, this is a halvesies, a half and half one. So we actually line it up so that we're halfway between this side and halfway between the bottom, and we're going to get golden lines going off away from the corner, and then we know that we're lined up properly. Okay, we're going to go back down to that bottom new group there, and we're going to create another duplicate, and we're going to do the same thing right here. We're just lining it up just like that. Okay, and golden lines going away from the, whoops, when they're going away from you, you can let go. Just like that. All right, and one more time, actually two more times, but this is this one. Okay, so halvesies, I want to be able to see that. So the nice thing about this method is if you get this first tile right, you don't have to keep duplicating anymore. You can use brushes. And so get the first tile right and you're good to go. So that's why I like this method quite a bit. Okay, let's go ahead. This last one down here, and again, halvesies, and looking for those golden lines. Perfect. Okay, so I feel like this might be sunk down just a little bit and I might want to move it up, but I'm not quite sure yet. So this is a really good time to go ahead and test the pattern. So look at it, check it out, make sure it's working. So we're going to go all the way up to our top layer group here, select it, then go over to our wrench, and then we're going to select Add, Copy Canvas, and Paste. And this copies everything onto a layer all by itself right here. So then we're going to go over to our three little dots here. Whoops, try that again. And split view, and we're going to go over to our drag and drop here, and we're just going to drag and drop this tile right on over there. And actually that looks pretty good, and you can also see there are no seams. This is really the reason to check your pattern, but this looks great. So now I actually like the way it is. I want to try one thing. I'm very curious, so let's clear this for a second. I want to go back down to that first bottom group. I'm wondering if I flip it over, like how that would look. I'm just curious. So let's try that. We're going to go over to Modify, our Transform tool, and we're going to go ahead and rotate this side to side like that. And then I'm going to position it in the center again. So let's see, where's this? There, whoops, there we go. So center just like that. Now it does have a little bit of a run over here, so I might want to go ahead and just move it slightly over here. So just tapping, oh, maybe I'll just get more aggressive. There we go. So maybe something like that. Let's see how that looks. That might have some interest to it too. I just am curious. I like the other way too, but I just am very curious. So let's go ahead and tap that top group and then modify our wrench, add, copy canvas, and paste. And let's see what that one looks like, because I'm just curious. Just want to know. Oh, wow. I kind of like it because it feels like it's wind going back and forth, but you can play around with this and get what you like. And once you're satisfied, I am going to stick with this particular pattern. Once you're satisfied, go ahead and tap clear, go ahead and get rid of the checker there. And then we're going to go ahead and delete this. But we are ready now to group all of these things together as original work and make brushes. So we'll come back in just a moment and do that. For the next part of the tutorial, you might find the PDF that comes with the freebie really helpful. Coming back to our artwork, we're going to go back down to our original group here, and I'm going to just slide it over, create a duplicate, and I'm going to rename that duplicate to original art, just in case something goes sideways and and I need to go back to the original to start everything up again. So, okay, I just like to have, I like to preserve the art so that I do have a comeback point if I make a mistake. So I'm going to turn the visibility off of that one, and we're just going to work with this stuff in these groups right now. Okay, so we're going to pop open every group here. Okay, and then we're going to select all of the same colored layers. And I know this one doesn't look like it has anything on there, and it may not. There's probably like a little dot of red or something like that there. So what we're going to do is select one of the reds and then go through and select all of the other what would be red layers. There we go, all the way down. Okay, that is great. Okay, so once we have them all selected, we're going to go ahead and group them, and this creates a new group with the label new group, and we're going to tap that label twice to open up the group menu, and then we're going to tap flatten. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with all of the green layers. So tap that first one, make it a bright blue, and then just go ahead and drag and drop just gently to get the others, and then tap group, and then tap the new group name, and then flatten. Okay, all right, and now we can just take these groups and just tap one of them, and then drag and gently drop the rest of them just like that, and then you can delete those groups just like that. Okay. All right, so now that we have this new group with all of the artwork on it, we are ready to turn these into brushes. So we're going to go ahead and tap that top red layer there, and we're going to make invisible this green layer. And with the red layer selected, we're going to come over to our adjustments panel here, and we're going to select hue, saturation, and brightness, and we're going to dial down the saturation just like that. Now, we're going to keep this tile so that we can make changes later on, but right here, let's go back to the tile. What you could do, if you wanted this to be a more intense color later on, you could actually create a duplicate of this, and this is what you could use for the brush. We're not going to do that. We're just going to go with the original, so go ahead and delete that if you copy me. So we're just going to go with the original single layer of the color here, but that is one way that you could get greater intensity later on. Let's go ahead and make our first brush. So we're going to go over to our brushes, and we've got the Pattern Power brushes here, and we're going to come up to the grain brushes here, and I'm going to go ahead and go with the 36 for this particular brush. So we're going to go ahead and gently slide it over and create a duplicate, and then we're going to come over to our wrench and copy canvas, and then we're going to select that brush, and it will tell you whether it's shape or grain that needs to be replaced. In this case it's the grain, and we're going to edit that, import, paste, and we want it to be white because that's where the color will lay down for our brushes. And then we're going to go ahead and tap done. Now, as you notice, there's not a whole lot of see-throughness. There's some, but not a whole lot. So what we want to do is go to rendering and then tap light glaze, and that gives a lot more quality to the flowers. If you'd rather have it more intense, of course, do whatever rendering mode you'd like. Okay, when you're done with that, you can go ahead and tap done. And now I'm going to go ahead and create a duplicate of this brush because I'm going to want the same settings for my next brush. And I'm actually going to select the first one because I want to put my stems below my flowers. I just like to keep it organized that way, but you can organize it however you like. All right, so let's go back to our layers. I'm going to turn that visibility off for that flower layer. I'm going to turn the visibility on for our stems and leaves. And we're going to select that layer, and we're going to come over and select the adjustment. And we're going to select hue, saturation, and brightness for our adjustments here. And we're going to take the saturation all the way down. So here we go. All right, and then again, with that layer selected, we're going to come over to our wrench, add, copy canvas. And we're going to go into our brushes, and that second brush down there. We're going to go ahead and go into the grain, edit, import, paste. Just like that. And we don't have to worry about rendering because we've copied the brush and we already took care of the rendering. It is the same. So there we go. We're done and done. Okay, so we'll come back. What we want to do is look at this brush right here, or look at the document that comes with the freebie. It tells you what size canvas you want to use for this brush, and it's 6,028 pixels by 6,028 pixels square. For the next part of the tutorial, my canvas size is 6,028 by 6,028 pixels. Okay, we're back, and I now have a properly sized canvas here. So let's go ahead, and instead of using the original colors, let's choose a different set of colors. So let's go ahead and go with this lighter green for our green brush here, and then we can just lay it down, just like that. And then let's go ahead and create a new layer on top of that. And let's see, what color flowers do we want? Do we want purple or orange? Maybe we want some orange flowers. Let's try that. Okay, and make sure that I actually have selected the flowers there, and then we can just lay them down just like that. And of course you can put a different color underneath it all too, so there's lots of, like, you've got instant flexibility here. You can use this pattern and modify it in a variety of different ways, and you can play with different scales too. But let's go ahead and test this just to make sure that we are in fact dealing with a seamless pattern here. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to hit our ellipses and our split view. We're going back to the website. Okay, oh yes, we need to create a composite here. So we're going to tap our wrench and copy canvas and paste. Okay, and then we'll take this composite and just drag and drop it right in there. Okay, wow, that's awesome. And yep, there is no seam, so this is great. So you could take this and use it as is for a variety of different, like, print-on-demand applications such as Society6 or Printify, something like that, or even Spoonflower. And if you need to use this as a digital product and it needs to be 12 by 12, let me show you how you can sample down. Here, let's go over to our wrench and then canvas and crop and resize, and then over to settings, and then we're going to go ahead and say resample canvas, and then we're going to go ahead and tap the first box there, and just go ahead and put in 3600. So this will be a 12 by 12 inch canvas at 300 dpi. Okay, so then when you're satisfied with everything, you tap done here and done there. And now you do in fact have a 12 by 12 inch canvas at 300 dpi, and you could sell this as a digital product. And that's a wrap for our pattern mini course. Thanks for spending your time with me, and I hope your day is amazing.